the offseason program, provided, of course, he's under contract or has signed the franchise tender.
That's actually important. There's been so much talk about him. You forget that he's coming back from this serious injury. So that seems to be going well. That's good. But Jeff Darlington, here's where I want to begin today. Because the news continues to be, every time I ask, no, the Cowboys still feel as though they're going to get this done. As every day goes by, that feels less and less likely with everything that has happened. What is it that gives the Cowboys the impression that they have any chance of getting the deal they want with Dak Prescott?
Greeny, I feel like it's trying to rationalize with the irrational to answer that question. It just doesn't make sense. And to your point, okay, here's the problem I have with this. It feels like every day that progresses forward, it's less likely. I remember having a conversation years ago with the general manager of the Washington football team at the time, Scott McLuhan, about Kirk Cousins and the deal there. And every day that went by, he knew that they were not going to sign Cousins to a long-term deal. And by the way, here's why. Dak Prescott can play for $37.7 million on the franchise tag this year. That's a 20% bump from last year. So all of a sudden, the goalposts move. The starting point per year changes. So I just don't understand. I will be so impressed if the Cowboys and Dak are able to get to a deal that they haven't gotten to this point, because it feels like every day it's going to get progressively harder. We will see. We've said it a million times. We will wait and we will see. From my seat, I don't see how this gets done.
No, you use the word impressed. I'll be stunned if they're able to get a deal done. And we all know what, if you do the same thing over and over again and hope to get a different result, we know what they call that. That's what they're doing in Dallas. Torrey Smith, you've been down the block a couple of times on this sort of thing. What are you seeing happening here?
Yeah, I don't see a deal being done, in the next few weeks. Why? They haven't done it yet. And it's the most frustrating thing as a player, understanding the franchise tag. Dak Prescott has done everything right. They tagged him, and it's a tool for teams to just simply buy time. Well, what are you waiting for? It's been years. Pay the man. There's no difference between rushing to finish it before the deadline and getting it done today, which I understand Dak's frustrations, even though he handles it great. There are so many other guys who I know would be losing their mind. They would have leaks out and stories about their feelings, but Dak's been respectable the whole time, and they still aren't paying the guy. So I think it's something that's going to get done. If it's going to happen, it's going to be before camp and right before that deadline. But, we'll see what happens.
That's on into July, and so many things have to happen between now and then. Ninko, what are you seeing here?
So this kind of reminds me when I was with my kids. We were down in New Orleans, and there was a merry-go-round, right? And I got on the merry-go-round with my kids, and I'm on this thing, and one song goes, and I'm looking at my watch, and I'm looking, another song goes, and I look again. I'm like, how long am I going to be on this merry-go-round? Because it feels like this is a never-ending merry-go-round. It's very slow. There's really not much action going on. I'm looking at the horse next to me just slowly move up and down, up and down. So for me, it seems like this merry-go-round's never going to end, and I really think that any negotiation, anything that they had on the table is completely wiped away clean because of the fact that his cap number or his actual franchise tag number has increased. I don't know the percentage. Jeff, what'd you say, 30%? So in that particular instance, he's going to make, yes, exactly. He's going to make more money. So the Dallas Cowboys, if they want to keep him as their quarterback, they're going to have to come up a lot and get off the merry-go-round.
Jeff, here's what's going to happen. They're going to tag him. If he plays this year on the tag, they're going to pay him an insane amount of, far more than they were ever bargaining to pay him, and then he's going to walk away as an unrestricted free agent next year. That's what's going to happen in Dallas.
They missed the window. The window was there. The window was there probably 2 years ago. And I get it, by the way, one thing quickly. I get that we can look at what the Rams and the Eagles did by extending their guys too early, and then everybody's saying, why did you do that? Now Dallas is saying, well, there's a risk in that too. I get it. It just feels like they missed the window, Greeny.
Yeah, because you don't get judged based upon whether you did the right thing at the time. You get judged based on the result. So in Los Angeles and in Philadelphia, we didn't think it was the wrong thing to do at the time. That's our job. We first guess, and then they get judged based upon how it turns out. With the Cowboys right now, this thing is getting further and further from the resolution that they want, regardless of what they think or say. Now let's move on to another place where the quarterback situation is desperate, and that is Chicago. So many questions there. Yesterday, their general manager, Ryan Pace, their head coach, Matt Nagy, both under enormous pressure, were asked about their plans for addressing their quarterback situation. Here's what they said.
Everything's on the table in regard to the quarterback situation. And honestly, that includes players on our current roster. That includes free agency, trade, the draft, and a combination of all those. So we have a plan in place, and now it's about executing that plan.
There's a lot of what ifs, and there's a lot of different, okay, here we are, this is where we're at. And if it's X, Y, quarterback X, Y, or Z, what do we do to get this thing better?
All right, so just to be clear, Ryan Pace just said everything is on the table and then said we have a plan in place. Those two things seem to me to be contradictory to each other, but let's not mince words. Let's get to the bottom line of this. Jeff Darlington, they were talking yesterday about the possibilities of bringing back Nick Foles and bringing back Mitch Trubisky. They need to be doing everything they can to sign one of these big quarterbacks, right?
Yeah, I understand exactly why Ryan Pace is saying what he is saying. But yeah, there is no question that these guys have these top-tier quarterbacks on their mind. The question, of course, is does Deshaun Watson get free? I spoke to an executive yesterday who said, look, believe it or not, Houston really isn't taking calls right now. The general manager, Nick Caserio, is not having these conversations. Now, it feels like at some point that will happen, probably nearer the draft. But right now, it feels like you have a very desperate QB-needy team in the Bears, and you have a commodity that seems like it would garner a lot of compensation. So to me, the wonder is this the time? Is the time now for the Texans to get the most possible for Deshaun Watson by trading him to the Bears?
Yeah, that feels like it makes a lot of sense to us. Now, Rob Ninkovich, again, you're a Chicago area kid, and we've joked around a lot on this show. You do the voice and everything else, but let's be an analyst here for a moment. Should the Bears right now give the Texans anything they want for Deshaun Watson?
Yes, 100%, and I'll explain why. Let me paint a little picture for you. Under Nagy, their defense is number 2, and offensively they're ranked 24th. So if you have a defense that's basically built to win championships and your offense is struggling, ranked 24th, bottom of the league consistently, well, guess what? If you go out and you get a great quarterback, not only is that going to raise the level of your offense, but the defense is going to be considerably more confident that every time they step on that football field, all they have to do is get the ball to the offense, and the offense will do their job. There's no, okay, defense, we need to score here because we know our offense can't get the job done. If they get a great quarterback, they're going to be able to have a defense and an offense combined, which should put them in a great spot to win a division.
Look, they've basically been waiting 101 years since they were formed in 1920 as the Decatur Staleys to get a quarterback the caliber of Deshaun Watson. And Torrey Smith, people arguing on the other side will say, well, you can't give up all those number 1 draft picks. What would you say to them?
They're out of their mind. You give away all of those draft picks. You know, a sure thing at the quarterback position is way better than any draft pick you could possibly have. I don't care how many first rounders it takes. There are so many great players in this league, Pro Bowlers, Hall of Famers, who are drafted after the first round. So if you have a guy that can be the anchor of your offense and the face of your franchise for the next 10 years, you make that trade, and you're built to win right now. You can find complementary pieces to help improve your team in different areas on the offensive line, add more weapons at the receiver position in later parts of the draft. But those first-round draft picks, they can go. Deshaun Watson is the real deal, and you force them, you give them a trade that's so good that they can't turn it down.
I'm glad you said that. It was in your notes last night, and I wanted to bring that up here because sometimes I think we talk about these teams as though if they trade away their first-round pick, they don't even draft that year. It's just one of the many picks you can make. If you scout this thing right, you can still have a big night on draft night, and Jeff Darlington, the Russell Wilson of all of this, plays into it as well, right? Deshaun Watson was the one guy in this conversation that the Bears wanted.
Right.
If Russell Wilson really starts to become available, that could